I don't know. What do you think?
I think we're ready to roll.
All right. If anybody joins a little bit late.
We'll welcome you at that point. In case some of you who do not recognize this face, my name is Jim Walisa, and I'm one of the founders of Clearday and CEO. And I'm very happy to be here today with you and Kristen Hemmons. I get an opportunity to work with a fantastic caregiver with decades of experience. We won't say how many decades, let's just say a number. And Kristen's been with us after 9 years of trying to get her to come on board. She's had experience in hospital settings, in skilled care settings, in home settings, in residential care settings. She's done wound care, acute care, subacute care. Kristen's had her chance to have her fingers in what I call all parts of care. She's focused on long-term care with us here at Clearday. And just to kind of talk about what Clearday is, some of you know this, some of you don't. We're trying to change, or the fancy word is disrupt how care is driven. Most of long-term care today is built around a building where a group will build a beautiful building. They'll try to convince people to move out of their home and come there and be taken care of. And we're all for that. We own those type of buildings. But we think there's a better continuum of care. And that continuum of care and all of our new products and services, and you're participating in one of them, is designed to provide support to stay at home. 90% of Americans have said, I want to stay at home until I'm not, right? Till they're no longer safe. So Clearday at Home is a virtual offering. And when I say virtual, we're taking all the things that we've learned over the years in our residential care communities. I like to call them a box. So we do therapies, we have specialty types of programs for sensory, we have tests that we give, we have plans of care. We're going to take all those things that we do in our box and bring them to you on your box at home, on your laptop, your computer, your phone. I bet I look good on a phone. As I said, Kristen's been part of our team here. She's been one of the original people in putting together the platform, the content, the curriculum. Her role is to educate. She leads our technicians of care and technicians of cognitive care. And we're really happy to have her here. And I get to be the guy to ask questions, the expert, and try to tie it in as to what it means to Clearday at Home. And I think it's important that we're trying to develop products and services for anyone with age-related cognitive, neurological, or even physical challenges. Kristen's got a ton of experience. What we're going to do tonight is, since we've been working in our virtual space, we've had a ton of you guys give us questions. We can't possibly answer them. We started out with 27, and Kristen looked at me and goes, no way can I cover 27. Not in a period of time that's reasonable. Yeah. So we made some cuts. So some of you who've sent some questions, we might not get to them, but we're always going to be doing these types of webinars and programs to support folks who are at home taking care of a loved one. So Kristen, as part of the technician of care, is one of our coaches, the coach. And we want to talk about how coaching sessions could make a difference for you. That is one of our offerings at cleardayathome.com. That's one of the ways you can find out more, cleardayathome.com. And we offer an explanation of the BEST test, behavior, engagement, stimulation, and temperament. We talk a little bit about the plan of care and what we can do for you. And there is a great section where you can click on and get her personally as one of our care coaches, the coach of care. So one of the first questions I want to start with for you, Kristen, came to us a couple of weeks ago. And I want to make sure in my notes, I get it as close as possible. Kristen, I can't deal with having a seemingly, in quotes, seemingly cognitive conversation one moment with my dad, and then a totally mixed up one next. Help? What have you seen in your decades?
So everybody out there that is dealing with dementia, one of the only constants of dementia is change. And, underlying everything that we talk about and help caregivers with is understanding what's going on in the brain. And when you understand what's going on, that disease is attacking the brain. When you understand that, it helps you be a better caregiver because you see why somebody may be doing the things that they're doing. And so a really common issue that people have with this sort of this question, this scenario is 1 minute they seem fine and the next minute they are really confused. And so a lot of people ask me, and you may have gone through this yourself, I think that they're manipulating me. I think that they, are playing. I think they're playing because 1 minute they're fine, and then the next minute all of this is going on. And it seems that that must be a really natural response given that shift, because so many people ask it. And what we would do in a coaching session is to talk in depth about why that's going on, and why they're not manipulating you. And I think that's one of the biggest things to understand. They are really doing this because of the miswiring in the brain and the misfiring of nerve signals. So those signals, because of the damage, don't always go where they're supposed to go. So sometimes they do and they hit, and then sometimes they don't and they miss. And that can be dependent on some things that would affect you or me. Like if we don't have a good night's sleep, if we're hungry and cranky, if there's too much going on in the background, any of those things can contribute. Internal stresses, like if somebody's feeling, frustrated or agitated, any of those things. So a really important part is what we like to work on with people in more depth to help you get a bigger understanding that that isn't a purposeful thing on their part. They're not trying to mess with you. They really are just struggling to try and stay in the moment. And one moment they're there and the next moment they're not. So anyhow, that's one of a common issue that people are experiencing that we get questions about.
I'm fortunate enough occasionally to listen to the coach here. And one of the things she said to me I thought was really cool is understanding where they are and go where they are. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a cool thing because we want to take them where we are and we have to go where they are. So Kristen did a great job helping me understand that they're not doing this on purpose. It's just, we got to get to where they're at. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a helpful thing to do. I got another one. Names will be held. It's an interesting one. My uncle paces around the house. He's opening doors continuously. What do I do?
So again, some of these are kind of pretty common questions from people. So we'll start again where this disease process is creating damage inside the brain. And a lot of people notice that their loved ones are doing these kind of odd repetitive tasks. And a lot of what people do is they, try and get them to stop or ask them why they're doing it. And then that often doesn't go so well. I don't know if any of you all have tried to correct your loved one with dementia, but that's one of the things in the coaching that we really, really work on is changing that mindset of how to approach these things. So if we think about, there's multiple pieces here, but we think about people doing these odd things, whether it's fighting with you or pacing the house. There's any number that we'll talk about. There's a reason that they're doing that. And what we have to do, instead of just kind of arguing against it or just resisting that, is figure out why they're doing it. And we call those things unmet needs. And people with dementia start losing their skills and their abilities to communicate. So we think about it as just memory, but it really is tons of other things. So people with dementia, when it gets to this part up here, that it controls things like initiation of activities or following sequences, staying focused on a task, lots and lots of things, not just those, but relative to this question. People used to have hobbies, they used to have skills, they used to work, they used to manage the household finances. So they were busy and they had lots of things to occupy their brain. But when they start, those become difficult because of reasoning and problem solving that's lost up here, they can't do all those things. So when they can't do them because they're hard, they kind of lost a little bit. So people still seek things, but they are not successful in maybe modifying a hobby to an easier version. Instead, you might see behaviors where they found something to do and they just keep doing it. They're walking and they're kind of seeking, right? Sometimes they're rearranging things. Sometimes they're moving clothes from here to over there, and then they're moving them from there to there. So they're seeking a task that's meaningful and that they can succeed at. So what we try and help people understand on the coaching end is, again, like the underlying, why is this going on? Additionally, on our activities in our care plan in, this type of behavior, and all of them really, are very conducive to benefiting from more structured activities and more engagement in activities. And for those folks, that's, like that's sort of the dual benefit of both tracks, like the member plan and the caregiver education plan, and where they can intertwine so that, we can find something for them that they don't have to find themselves, that they can succeed in. So, short answer to a long question.
I was fortunate enough to play some college sports. And one of the things coaching taught me was habits. Coaches want you to get in habits so you're automatically doing things. And it sounds like part of this is also to reform some habits, and maybe, and this is, as Kristen said, she is behind coaching, but she's also been integral into our plans of care that we're putting together. And these plans of care can help form new rituals and new habits to take some of that going around the house and opening doors to a more beneficial activity, focusing on behavior, engagement, and keep them stimulated. So, Coach, great job. And she even talked about a game plan. So here's one, and it's actually brings a couple interesting points together. It's again a short question. I'm looking for tips on exercises for someone generally bedbound. Kristen, thoughts?
So this question is a little bit different than the patterns that we get that usually are involved with some of the difficult challenges with, people with dementia and different behaviors and so on. But this one kind of was a unique slant on a specific coaching program. So that question I did not actually address in a webinar because it was so specific. And it's not just specific in that, it's a bedbound person, which is probably less common in people seeking out our services a little farther along in their journey, but also because it's real specific to that person. And as a physical therapist, I know the answer to that question if I have some more information. But that is the kind of question that I would write back and encourage somebody to do directly into an independent coaching session rather than a group format, because it needs to be interactive. Health status, flexibility status, all of those things. So what we would prescribe to them and recommend exercise-wise would be safe. So that's just an example of, specific challenges that you're facing. It doesn't have to necessarily be like a dementia problem, but something even, a physical specific question.
And that's a great answer. And one of the reasons we brought this question in is Kristen said, it's a very specific thing, and how you handle it depends on what the answers are. And it's a perfect example of why coaching is so important. We put together in our plans of care some basic things which we've learned in our box, what will help people's behavior, their engagement, their stimulation, and their temperament. So we know what will work, but when you get to specific things like this, that's what the coaching program's there for. It's available to you anytime you want. You can go to cleardayathome.com, scroll down, look for her beautiful picture, and ask for a coaching session. And you will see a calendar pop up, and you can choose what works in your schedule. And we historically have tried to do this during business hours, but we realize that not all caregivers have time during business hours. So if you haven't gone to our Clearday at Home website lately, and you're interested in coaching, make sure you go there, because you're going to start seeing extended hours in the weekends, in the evenings. Kristen jokes she's good for the night shift. So if you like her and you want to talk to her at 8 o'clock at night, that probably could be arranged. So we appreciate that, to really understand that's just one example about where coaching can come in handy. And I'm sure those of you out there when you have those unique situations, that's where you need somebody like Kristen or any of our other coaches. We have people who do occupational therapy, we have nurses, LPNs, people who lead activities daily, people who do sensory things. We got lots of talent. Here at Clearday, we have 288 employees stretched across the Northeast, the Southeast and Southwest, and we can call on their experiences to help you. So Kristen, that is awesome about why they should thinking about having a coaching session with you. Here's one that I am positive happens to a lot of folks. We're going back to more general now. How do I deal with my dad's anger stemming from constant confusion? Kristen, what do we do for dad?
So I definitely would say a very large percentage of people deal regularly with, whether it's constant or just periodic anger episodes with their loved one. And this is just a common feature. It's just part of the process of dementia. The thing that I would like to help people learn and improve upon is that it doesn't have to be as big of a part. Again, we're going to look at their brain changes. The brain, this disease is attacking it. And so as that is happening, they are losing their skills and their ability to stay in control and to stay, in a higher state of function. They are starting to be dependent on other people for things, but they probably don't want to ask for other things. They are frustrated frequently because it's harder to get stuff done. It's kind of like if you were always in a state of like about to fall asleep, but you've got to go and turn on the dishwasher or whatever, I don't think you probably should go to sleep and turn on the dishwasher, but that's, what I mean. Where you're struggling to initiate things, you're struggling to complete things, you're struggling to stay focused on things. So underlying their status is some frustration that's just a base level. But back to what Jim was talking about earlier, when we talk about going where they are, we are a contributing factor to their anger as well. When we are reacting with them and expecting them to be their own self, how they've always been their whole life. So our expectations are here and their reality is over here. And so in terms of the reality of their current kind of functional status, we have to understand that, go over there and support that. In addition, the things sometimes that they think and say that we know are probably inaccurate, that's a whole nother area that triggers anger where we're correcting. Just like if somebody's wandering, all of these problems, if they're wandering and it doesn't hurt anybody, does it matter if they're wandering? No. Would it be better if they did something more meaningful? Yes, but does it hurt anything? And let them do it rather than argue. So some kind of general ideas like that, like not correcting, not reasoning, not challenging them, and going into where they are and understanding that they're losing their abilities. So we are there to support them. So having some sessions going over your specifics within those areas can be really helpful. And there's some people that I've been working on for multiple sessions where it's, you have to, again, it's changing a habit.
Yep.
You have to not answer the way that you were going to answer. You have to think and then respond until it becomes a little more natural. But they say when they change their mindset, it makes a huge difference, like almost immediately, whether you can solve the problem fully, but it does immediately once you start seeing it a little more from their side. So again.
So when we were talking about these questions, Kristen made a really good point. You're here, your loved one's there. You either have to think the loved one's going to come to you, which, as you can see, it's not going to happen, or you go to them. And that's really what's going to make everybody's life easier. But as Kristen said, this is habits. And this is why I think it's important that people understand in our plans of care, which Kristen has been part of the design, is helps form new habits, new rituals that'll be a bit more oriented towards behavior, the engagement, and keep them stimulated. So I think that was a great answer, Kristen. We've got one more. We're winding down. She's doing a great job. Some of you might have gone to our company's website, myclearday.com. And if you have or haven't, I would encourage you to go there. And there's a wonderful video of a bunch of our caregivers talking about what motivates them, why Clearday, why they're here. And one of the things that I say, and I believe as we built this company, is we take care of both the caregiver and the care receiver, and no one should be alone. That's one of the constant themes that we try to get across. That's why we have coaching. That's why we have plans of care. We want to give you access more than you might get in any other healthcare environment to help with long-term care needs. So with that in mind, here was a question that I think we really need to make sure we answer, because it hit in my heart. Mom's scared to be alone, but I need my me time. What do we do, Kristen?
I'm sure nobody has felt that at all, right?
No.
So again, these are going to all be related, and you'll find like the more you attend, whether they're webinars or coaching sessions or any of our activities for caregivers, that it really is, there's really like one answer to all of it. It has to do with understanding the brain and learning as much as you can about the changes there. So a minute ago, we were talking about your loved one losing some skill and ability. And if you kind of think about what that would feel like, and a lot of times if we could put ourselves in their position, and we're looking at what's their unmet need, because they can't tell us, they couldn't analyze it and say, gosh, I'm really frustrated because I used to do crossword puzzles and now it's too hard. They can't analyze all that. So we're going to figure out like what would be an unmet need. And so if you're losing your abilities, now it's probably hard for us to think about losing cognitive abilities, but let's think if we broke our ankle. And so now we're reliant on people for things like, God, I just want to go over there and do that. And I can't, you can't go to the store and you can't take a shower and all of those things. It puts you in a more vulnerable position. So if you have one of the many loved ones that is feeling insecure, and this leads to things like, having outbursts when you have to leave to go to work or go just do something for yourself. It leads to the following. It's called trailing or following, where they just stick right with you,
I practiced that. I followed her around.
So, to the point where people can't even go into the bathroom, right? And then there's the other form could be just the repetitive questions. When did you say you're going? When are you coming? When are you coming back? What did you say? Where are you going? When are you coming back? What did you say? What are we going to do next? And they're really like trying to keep control. And so if we think about them instead of in the sense that, God, they are driving me nuts, why can't they just relax for a minute and put ourselves in their shoes and say their unmet need is fear. They are insecure, they're anxious from all of this loss of skill. And then they can't remember what's going on. I mean, literally cannot remember what's going on. They know something is coming up. And so they aren't sure what and when it's going to be over and when you'll be back, because they can't remember that, even if you write it down as the stages progress. So we would work with people having this issue on first understanding that, putting yourself in their shoes, and then working on ways to be more reassuring without being confrontational, in the sense of, Mom, don't you remember I told you we're going to the theater and we'll be back in 10 minutes.
You'd never do that to your mother, would you?
No, maybe. So, working on ways to understand how to be reassuring to somebody with grave memory loss. And the other issue, of course, which is very similar to everything else, is if you increase engagement and stimulation in meaningful activities, that will create a greater ease of mind, that being behavior and temperament. So if they can engage in an activities program, so for instance, like our care plan for someone who is, fairly along with their cognitive deficits, would be tailored to their level so that they can participate once they form a habit, get used to doing it. And a lot of that can help in terms of their general demeanor, their general peace of mind, and so on. So kind of, just a combination effect, again, of like the activity program and the education program going together. And
that's kind of why we put them together. As I said, my background is the rituals and habits of an athlete. And, when you start to really look at what your life was like prior to that cognitive issues, we all have habits. We all have ways of doing things. What we want to try to do with our plans of care is establish new type of habits, new types of rituals, so that that person can have something to rely on, and also to give the caregiver a break. Because as I said, this started out with no one should be alone.
Mhm.
And sometimes that caregiver feels like they are, that's when they should be calling Kristen. Also, one other point on the caregiver, sometimes we've heard this, that, hey, since Kristen's been coaching me, she gave me 3 great ideas. Because here's what happens when you sign up for a coaching session. We should probably explain it. You go to your calendar, you sign it up, you get Kristen or somebody like Kristen, and they're going to talk to you just like she talks to you. She's going to ask you questions, just like you would expect from somebody. Because if we don't ask those questions, we can't help you. And then you'll probably within a couple minutes tell her everything she needs to know. And she's taking notes all along. And then what happens when the session is done, she'll give you some hints, but more importantly, she's going to give you what I would call an action plan. She'll send you an email kind of highlighting what you talked about and some ideas to help you get going. So we've seen this happen. We've seen a coaching session in action, and it was for a person whose loved one was a little earlier in their journey. And somehow or another, he believed he really didn't have a problem. The caregiver did.
Mhm.
So she discussed those issues with Kristen, and Kristen identified for her, yes, there is dementia. It's early, but it's there. So it was a eureka moment. Kristen gave her coaching tips. She gave her some ideas. She was all excited. And she was kind enough to be participant like you have in some of our programs, giving us input back. And she said to our interviewer, researcher, this was great. I love Kristen. I'm going to go do this. It's going to be excellent. And I'll check back in if I start to see him going downhill. And my first reaction when I heard that was, no, don't do that. If we're getting a victory, you want to stack victories. You want to build on that. If the coaching sessions work and the plans of care are working, don't stop. Continue, but check in with Kristen because she can help. Our whole idea here at Clearday is to, I'll use the fancy word we all learned in 2020, flatten the curve. We want to sustain you so that you and your loved ones can stay home, save that money, build things for your estate, have a home that you spent 40, 50 years building and growing, make it comfortable. That's what people want. We're here to help you sustain that. Now, here's a question. Kristen thinks it's the last one, but there is a bonus question. We're going to put her at a surprise. She doesn't know it's coming.
Okay.
You should see that look she just gave me. But here's the one she does know is coming. And I am positive if you're taking care of someone, this has happened. You've even heard it if you know somebody taking care of someone. Dad thinks everyone's stealing his stuff. Kristen, what do we do?
So
Put them in jail?
Yeah.
They want to put everybody in jail. Go ahead.
Again, this is one that comes in frequently, and they might accuse, you, the family member, or it could be an outside caregiver, or it could just be somebody who's coming in at night and breaking in. And so again, we'll keep going through the lesson, because by now I bet you guys could probably answer this in part. So
we hope so. That means this is working.
So whenever something weird is happening, what we want to do is go, why is this happening? Aside from the obvious that they have brain changes and brain damage from the dementia process. So why would you think somebody stole something of yours? And the main reason I come up with is that I can't find it. So my first thought when I lose my credit card is not that somebody stole it, it's that I put it somewhere that I don't remember. But if I had dementia, I wouldn't be able to retrace those steps, and the brain fills in for us. So when there's a gap, and you may have a loved one that does this, there's these weird stories that fill in the gaps, and it's like, well, I don't know. So just because it's a weird story, remember they're here, so this is their reality, and we're here, and so we're going to go over there because
don't have a choice.
That's the thing to do.
Yep.
So most of the time when somebody says this person's stealing my stuff, our natural response as humans that have a history of interacting with that person is to say, oh no, nobody broke in here. You've just misplaced it. And then you're going to have a fight. And so, what we would work on in a coaching session again is specific strategies, because each person is different, right? I mean, the temperament of each person, some people will believe this story, some people will believe that story. Some people, this approach is better. So what we do is work through those depending on, who's stealing what and when, and so on. But we would think about their unmet need. One is that they can't find it. So there's lots of strategies for that. You can put a tag on it that you can beep, like when you lose your phone. You can put things in places. If there's a big, huge section on the vision changes and they don't see stuff in the periphery. So it might be right there and they can't see it. So there's all kind of little components to that. But thinking about the unmet need is frustration and probably some anger and probably some fear because somebody's coming in the house and taking their stuff. And so we have to go and meet their reality. And there's lots of different ways that you can get this done. But generally it involves going over there and going with the flow. And so you kind of have to become an actor and a detective at the same time.
Wow.
And
sounds like a cool TV show, actor and detective.
And you're going to role play in a sense with them and find the person or report it to the police. And you got to have your special police line ready and things like that. So there's a lot of creative things that people have done. That's another, good reason to attend support groups, because some people come up with great ideas. We're all just kind of like, oh, I can't solve it. And somebody goes, oh, well, I just did this. And that was really helpful. So, and
that's a great point. Our core products are a plan of care, personal plan of care, and coaching. And I think Kristen said something very, very good. In this particular case, having a coach can help deal with what's being stolen, when, and how to do it, and what your story is. Personally, I was a child of 80s TV, so I wanted Magnum PI to find all my stuff that was lost in his red Camaro, his red sports car in Hawaii with the helicopter. That was what I was hoping. That's what somebody should tell me if I think things are stolen. We're going to get Magnum in here to make stuff happen. Or Tom Selleck, depends on which name you want to use. But the one thing I want to close with now, Kristen does not know much about where I'm coming with this question, but I do want to give her credit, because coaching and plan of care come really well together. You can do one, you can do the other, but if you do both, you're going to have a much better chance to sustain where your loved one is, where you are. Part of what we do in our plans of care is find out where you as a caregiver are. What makes Clearday unique is we do provide services and products for both care receiver and caregiver. So here's the bonus question. All right. Are we ready for that bonus question? We've run over 30 minutes, so we might have to redo our tape, Kristen. So here's what I'd like to do. Here's it. My first experience with somebody with dementia. Some of you might know this, but for over 3 decades, I had a very successful financial advisory practice. And I've been working with older adults, you could argue since I was born, because my mother had me late in life, but as a professional since 1982. And yes, I did have the bad Tom Selleck mustache, no question, and a polyester suit. So I was calling on a potential client to do an estate plan. And they were an older couple. We'll call them Bridget and John. Very Irish last name. And I did an estate plan for them, a trust. And we would visit in the morning, talk about what they wanted to do, and then the attorneys would put it together and I would deliver it to them. One time I said, I'm going to deliver it to them in the afternoon on my way home rather than go in the morning. So I go to Bridget and John's home, Kristen, beautiful little bungalow in Chicago, where I'm from. And we're sitting down at a table like this. I'm pulling my papers out, explaining everything. And all of a sudden, John just gets up, says, I'm going to Ireland. And I'm thinking to myself, wait, this is Chicago. He goes, I'm taking the bus. And I'm going, what? Now, remember, at this point in my career, I've been doing this 8 years. I'm about 30 years old. I've never seen anything like this. So as Kristen says, my first thing is, what do I do? And Bridget goes, get him, Jim, get him. I'm 6'2", 185. John was maybe 5'4", 115. I go, okay, no problem. Wrong. I tried to get John, and he had the strength of Hercules. There is no way myself was going to get him. And Bridget figured that out quick. So she got on the phone. Remember those dial phones we all used to have? She got on the phone, dial, dial, dial. Me and 2 other neighbors didn't know any better, but we got him. We grabbed him.
Took him down.
And we brought him back to the house. He was going out to the bus station, and there is no bus from Chicago to Ireland. I had never seen anything like that before. I'd never experienced it before. So Kristen, I was young. This was 30 years ago for me. If I had been trained by a coach like you or had this knowledge, what should I have done?
Well,
Besides take him down.
probably not tackle the poor guy. Understandably, we do have to differentiate. If somebody is doing something that's putting them in physical danger, that's a little more urgency than if they're just wandering up and down the hall, opening the doors all day. But again, if we think back to the entering their reality and going where they are, in his brain, because of the wiring problems, he was here 1 minute and now he's going to Ireland. And so you explaining that there is no bus to Ireland is going nowhere.
Didn't go anywhere, trust me.
And it's hard to fight that instinct because that's an instinct, like that's how we communicate. We're
That's
like,
all I
no, you're not going to Ireland on the bus. But what he sees in his head is like, I'm going to go to Ireland right now. So that's what he's doing, like it or not. So his reality is just as real to him as yours is to you. Since you can't change his, you're going to try and go over there, acknowledge that, and then work your way down from there. So, first of all, if he heads out the door, then I would just go on with him, but I wouldn't try to stop him. And I would probably start asking him some questions about Ireland and maybe what time the bus was coming and what was the route, and if he gets irritated with the questions, then back off a little bit. But I wouldn't argue that he can't go. But once he starts talking about it, maybe you can then, you want to shift and keep shifting a little bit at a time and shift to, tell me about your house in Ireland. Tell me about your family. Who are you going to visit? If you can get them to distract a little bit into that subject and get off of the immediate need to get on the bus, and hopefully there wasn't actually a bus stop there, but you never know. There was a bus stop there. Yeah. So your goal is sort of like distraction, and then what we call redirection, meaning let's give them a different angle to think about. And if they're, relatively cooperative, when you don't challenge them, I might say, so, John, I drove all the way over here from the office to give you that paper. So before you take this trip, you could be gone a while. Will you just sign a couple of things for me so we can get it into the bank so your money is safe? Something along those lines. And then once you get them in the house, like I would always teach people, be prepared with something to distract them, something they like, either something to talk about, something to do, something to look at, something that they'll mess with, if they hold it, they'll be interested in it. So, if this were the kind of thing somebody was doing a lot of escaping, we would do some sessions on strategies to, keep them from getting out, but then how to get them back in if they get out, and then how to get them back on track. And it's all the same because of the brain, because of the changes, because of the signals and the unmet needs.
So an interesting piece to the story as I hear Kristen speak, because I did live this and I had never seen anything like it before. And I found out a few weeks later that Bridget had to take John to a doctor, and she didn't want to hear what the real diagnosis was. She didn't want to hear what the option in 1990 was, basically going into, quote, a nursing home. And she chose one, and that's a whole different stream, which I hope someday you'll talk to us about. We know about residential care, and she chose one because it was close to the house. I'm not sure that ended up being the greatest thing, but I can see today that if there was a service like what Kristen's offering and coaching, and what we at Clearday are offering, our plan of care, I think Bridget would have been okay seeing this because there was some way to help.
Yeah.
Bridget never felt like she could help. So she was the person that was now managing the house. John used to, she was, so she had nowhere to go. She tried to explain it to her daughters, but her daughters didn't understand, and they weren't around Chicago. So she's doing this over the phone and they don't get it. They're like me. I saw it. So I say this because today, 30 years later, Clearday is leading the charge to educate you, give you these opportunities. Kristen mentioned our webinars. If you sign up at Clearday at Home, you'll get a best test with one of our professional technicians of care who will ask you questions about you, about your life, your loved one, all those things. Within 48 hours, we'll turn that plan of care around to you. And then we'll go over it with you. We'll be there to help get your way around this. And most importantly, you have coaches like this to help you once a month. But if you need more than once a month, that's what our coaching sessions are for. But we do supplement it with webinars like this, where we share stories. Mine was a war story from 30 years ago. You notice I haven't forgotten it. I can still visualize it. I can visualize all pieces of this. And I'm guarantee you, those of you who dialing in now know this and know that feeling, that first time of what am I supposed to do? Hearing Kristen tell me what to do was great. Bring them to your side, get to them, talk to them. I had no idea. And that's what we say about the habits, part of the rituals, so that when it happens, you know what to do. So Kristen, you're phenomenal today, coach, the coach of care. C. Kristen, the coach of care. I love my acronyms. I really do. People remember those things. Hey, we appreciate you. Please keep the questions coming. Got lots of them to go over with you. We hope you enjoy these webinars. If you haven't signed up, cleardayathome.com. Tell your friends. Tell the whole world.
Just keep learning.
I have a statement. How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Well, we're going to change how care is delivered. One person at a time, one person at a time, one person at a time. Now with this virtual care, we can help thousands of you. Come to us. We can make a difference. No one should be alone. Thank you.